Welcome to Stargate SG-1 for the first time, still not a Star Trek podcast. My name is Jeff Akin, and I'm watching Stargate SG-1 for the first time.
And I'm Brent Allen, and I'm also watching Stargate SG-1 for the first time. Truth is, I've actually seen this show about 47 times. However, for the very first time, I'm slowing this down, and I'm trying to dive into it and find out what are those good sci-fi messages that Stargate is trying to teach us. You know, those things that hold up a mirror to society, show us how we can be better human beings to one another, or just give us hope that things could be better in the future.
This week, Brett, we're going to see if that happens in the 15th episode of the third season of SG-1, Pretense. Now, last week, when I just tried to figure out what it's going to be, made my prediction, went through a couple of different things. I had past tense in my head when I started with pretense, post tense, all those things. No, it's a pretense. And I think General Hammond is going to have a pretense. He's going to put SG-1 through the ringer, some rough stuff. And at the end, he'll have something cool like, hey, you passed the test. And now General O'Neill or Lieutenant Jackson or something will happen that's really cool and happy at the very end.
Okay. I'm going to do something I don't usually do, Jeff.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you, you just nailed the episode.
What?
But not for this episode. What
Okay.
you just described is an episode of Stargate.
Like where Hammond messes with him and then, oh, you win. You're promoted.
There's a little more to it than that. But yeah, that is literally what it is. The whole, and that's what the episode is. I will not tell you when we get to that. It is not, however, this episode.
That's fair. That's fair.
But that is the plot line of that. And it's actually one of my favorite episodes. I really like that episode. So
it's a great prediction. It's a great idea for a show. I'm glad they stole it from me. Why don't you tell us the details on Pretense?
Yeah, there's a few details here. This is the 15th episode, season 3. Original air date, Jeff, was January 21st, 2000. So we've had about a 10-week break or so since our last episode of Foothold.
They had to leave some space because of Y2K. Everything could have changed, right? So.
Everything could have. And, they needed holiday breaks and stuff. This is the first episode of the new millennium.
Right.
So we have that one. This is where things start to change a little bit for SG-1 as far as their air dates go. And I'll point a few of them out, but I'm not going to do it too much. I'm usually going to go by its air date from the United States.
Okay.
However, SG-1 is now premiering in real time on Sky One, which is like the sci-fi channel over in like England, I guess, or something like that, or the UK. And they often get the show before we do.
Oh, wow.
Like they'd have it several days before we do. So as I put out the original air date, I'm going to be referring to the United States airdrop or air date, not necessarily the Sky One. Why? Because America. This is where I'm from.
Well, that's what you got. That's probably what all the stuff says. So.
Yeah. So, but I may from time to time point out the Sky One date. I believe this particular Sky One date was January 19th. The writer for this episode is written by our old friend Catherine Powers.
Oh, I'm gonna call her Thor's Powers.
Catherine Powers has had some really awful episodes. She's also had some really good episodes, though.
Yeah, she's kind of one or the other.
Yeah. So the question is, which one is this episode going to fall in? That's going to be for you to decide, my friend.
All right. There's a lot of pressure and I'm a little nervous.
Well, with that, we are going to go watch this episode. If you're just joining us for the first time, first of all, welcome. You're amazing. We're so glad you found us. Here's how this works. We're about to go watch this episode. Like right now, we're going to not even break this video. If you're watching the video, you're watching us on YouTube, hang out because you're going to catch our reactions. Jeff and I are going to watch it right now. If you're watching us on Patreon, you actually get the full unedited version. And if you guys want to find out more about that, you can head over to patreon.com/FiNerds.
If you're listening on a podcast app, you're about to gate into the future. We'll be there waiting for you on the other side, where I'll share my first-time reactions. Brent will go through the sci-fi messages that he found. So let's kick this bad boy off, Brent. Pretense.
Chevron 7 locked.
Jeff, we have just got done watching this episode, Pretense. I told you last week, Jeff, that it wouldn't be until you saw the episode that you would understand the title of the episode. So now I put it to you. Do you understand what Pretense was about? And take us through your first time watch. Was it good? I personally love this episode. I watched this episode a lot. I love this episode, but I've seen it 47 times. How about you as a first watch? Is it any good?
People give Star Trek a lot of credit for really nailing court episodes, right? You've got, Measure of a Man. You got that one they did in Strange New Worlds that was really well done. A whole bunch of other ones. They do court episodes well.
The one in Lower Decks was phenomenal.
It was so good. Like, it
was so funny too. The big horn and everything.
And then it was actually like for a fun thing or whatever.
Right. It was like a surprise party or something turned into.
So awesome. But I think that in that shadow, the mighty shadow that Star Trek casts, huge beaming things like this episode SG-1 don't get a chance necessarily to shine out in the geek vernacular. This was an amazing court episode. I loved so much about this one. And here's where I think it exceeds a lot of the other court episodes as well, is it had some really good action in it as well that was entirely unexpected. You have the big explosion in the beginning, the two motherships getting blowed up while Skara Chlorel is flying down really, really slowly in a death glider and then crashes. Like, oh, okay, so that's just setting this stuff up. And then you have kind of the side B story of them painting the ion cannons, and it's like, oh, okay, they're doing this, maybe there'll be a little attack or whatever. But then like the whole climax isn't the rendering of the verdict. The climax is the actual attack. And for me, I saw the attack coming, but I didn't see that being the pinnacle of the episode. The way they handled the court aspect of this was brilliant. I think I hope that we get some more of Lord Zapakna. I liked him. He is a good advocate or good Archon, a good Archon.
Hey, can we talk about him real quick?
Yeah.
Lord Zapakna. Hey, let's roll out our goddess check.
Boom, 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 boom.
So Zapakna is a real god of the ancient world. He's a Mayan god. He is often depicted as a large caiman, which is an alligator type creature. Looks almost indistinguishable from an alligator. I don't know what the difference is. I'm not a zoologist. But he is the demonic personification of the Earth's crust. He is the brother of the Mayan god Earthquake.
Oh, okay.
So, I guess an earthquake is those two tumbling. I don't know what it is. But he is not a good guy. He's very tricky. He's very messes with people and not in a good way. Kind of a god. So that is a little bit of real world history on Zapakna.
That's cool. Explains his outfit.
Explains the outfit quite a bit. Mayan.
Which is a little weird, but it's for them. That's perfect. And it's awesome. I had the chance to tour the Mayan ruins many, many years ago. And in the Yucatan Peninsula, if you ever have the chance, it's quite an experience. And that's cool. He is real. And we saw that's what he was doing in this episode. He was messing with people, but doing so in like a legal framework.
Yeah.
It was done really, really well. He made compelling arguments.
Think about what you just said there, Jeff. He made compelling arguments as to why a Goa'uld is within his rights to take a human host.
Prepare for incoming Goa'uld channel communication.
Before we gate into the rest of this episode, did you know you're missing most of the content from this podcast? Stargate SG-1 for the first time has an active and exciting Patreon that you can join right now by clicking the link in the show notes. Not only will you get access to the full, unedited podcast and reaction videos, you'll also be able to join a growing, vibrant, maybe even an intergalactic community. Subscribers even get access to all of our content from Babylon 5 for the first time. Don't miss out on this content and the amazing people. Just click the link in the show notes. Tilk thinks you should do it right now.
Indeed.
We as humans, and sci-fi is guilty of this for apparent reasons. We're humans telling human stories. That's what sci-fi is about. But we put ourselves at the top of everything, right? The top of the food chain, the top evolutionarily, everything. This episode basically came in and said, what if you're not the top of that? What if we, as the Goa'uld, are on top of you? And so we get, the way you treat the things you see as lower, we get to treat you that way. Maybe if we could understand the language of horses or trees or anything, they'd be telling us, yeah, stop, get off of me. This hurts. I hate it. And it's humiliating. It hurts when you chop me down. All those.
Or they would say, would you please get back on so I can do this? Because I love doing this with you.
I like being able to help you out. This is so much fun.
I like racing. Maybe the trees would be like the giving tree. Like, here, take my stuff. This is for you. Or maybe they'd be like, ouch, stop, please.
Yeah, stop it.
I'm trying to breathe.
Giving Tree, by the way, is such an incredible book. Like, if you read that book and you don't tear up a little bit, I'm sorry. Like, it's so powerful.
Hey, by the way, can I throw a juxtaposition out at you with that?
Of course.
So you talk about what if the Goa'uld are actually on top of the humans,
and
the humans now get to speak. Do the Tolan not also treat humans the exact same way?
How do you mean?
We don't share our technology with lesser developed people.
So I think there's a difference in not sharing the technology and enslaving you.
Yes, but do or do not the Tolan still consider themselves superior to Earthlings?
Absolutely. But I think it's a different type of superior. So I am superior to, I am technologically superior to, I don't know, somebody in the deep reaches of the Amazon in Brazil or something like that. So I am superior to that person technologically. I don't see myself as superior to them in any form of hierarchy that would allow me to take advantage of them.
That's fair.
That's the argument that Zapakna was making, was that you see yourself as above all these animals, these beasts of burden, and as a result, you take advantage of them.
Mm-hmm.
We see humans that way, and so we take advantage of you. You happen to have speech, good for you. We're still superior to you. But with that, them not sharing technology, 100% the Tolan are Star Trek in SG-1. Prime Directive.
I've never thought about that before, Jeff, but you said that 3 or 4 times throughout the course of this episode, and I went, yeah. You walk onto Talana, it's like, hey, I'm in the Federation. Did it not look like Starfleet headquarters in San Francisco?
100%.
Yeah.
Like it's why this has to have been intentional, because I think what they even did is they took the ideal of Starfleet, the Federation, and ramped it up a notch, right? Because what do we see throughout Star Trek is, those damn Klingons, I can never forgive them for the death of my son. We see Jack O'Neill, right, in a lot of the stuff in there of, hey, I'm here to do good stuff. Also, automatically these people are bad. They take it up a step with the Tolan, where, yeah, these Goa'uld tried to attack us. Also, it breaks my heart that we had to attack and kill them. It's the most horrible thing.
Well, we defended ourselves, and they resulted in their deaths. We told them not to come. We told them not to do that, and they did it anyway, and now I feel bad. And what does that say about their value system, how they value life, and how they respect life as well? Because what we see is 3 very different parties in the Goa'uld and Zapakna, in the SG-1 team as humans, and then Laia, the Nox, who shows up. And I gotta tell you, anytime the Nox show up, that knocks the episode up a Nox or two. In a big way. See what I did? Yeah, see what you did there.
But it really does. They're such a fascinating, like the Tolan to me now, they're cool. They're fascinating still, but they are Star Trek. The Nox are still kind of mysterious and just interesting to me. But they had these 3 very different groups show up, and they treated them all with the same level of dignity, the same level of respect. When Laia showed up, she didn't get like red carpet and all this stuff, but she got treated very well and very respectfully. Now I have a question. In the 2 motherships that blowed up early in the episode, I feel like I heard this, but I want to confirm that her was on one of the motherships and he dead now. Is that what I heard?
It was his motherships who were coming after them. He was not necessarily on board one of them. He owns more. It's like we own more than one aircraft carrier as a Navy / mothership. It's just two of his motherships.
Two of his forces. Okay, so
Yeah,
I wanted to be clear on that, because I felt like if they just killed him, that kind of just flew by real fast and didn't get any attention. At the end of the episode, you made an observation, and at the same time, I was marking down a question, and I think I remember the answer to this, but I'm not sure. You made the observation that Skara ran up to hug Sam. They don't know each other. Sam has only known Skara as Chlorel the whole time, so it's interesting they're hugging. You said, hey, they're new friends, and that's great. They're happy to see each other. I wonder, is Skara going to have any of Chlorel's memories, emotions? Is there any part of Chlorel that's left in Skara? Now, if I remember right, with Jolinar, some of that happened because Jolinar died in Sam, so there was like...
And absorbed into Sam.
And so that's why she has it, but to the level that she does, I'm curious if there's any bit of Chlorel that's left in Skara, or if it's a clean break. And that's why I thought maybe they were hugging, because they're like, hey, we're blenders. Like we both was blended.
Those two, and then that girl Kendra from the Thor's Hammer planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Catherine Powers seems to be all about these people getting the Goulds pulled out of them.
Right. Put a pin in that idea, Jeff. It'll be a very long time, but eventually we can... I'm not going to say we're going to answer that question, but we will be able to address it with a little more information. But I will also say, do remember one thing Skara is going to go through with all of this. He's going to need some therapy.
A little.
Because he remembers everything. So even if he doesn't retain the knowledge of the Goa'uld and the memories of the Goa'uld, he does at least retain the knowledge that he gained while he was serving as host to Chlorel, and whatever gets left behind in Skara's own mind, because the host does survive.
Which brings up some interesting questions when we talk about the Harcesis and how the Harcesis's whole thing. Wow, Harcesis's whole thing. Hope I've got a de-esser on this thing. That probably sounded terrible otherwise. But the whole thing is that knows everything of all the Goa'uld of all time, right? But here we have one who hung out with Apophis, got some real firsthand stuff, and he was just watching. Skara was watching the whole thing. I wonder if he knows where Keb is.
Do you think the Pentagon might be interested in having a conversation with Skara?
Couple, maybe one or two conversations.
I don't think Jack's going to give him over, but whatever.
Right. But might be a thing they have to work through. I found it interesting that they called the Tok'ra to pull Chlorel out of Skara for a couple of reasons. One was, aren't the Tok'ra like in hiding? And they just like 1-800 the Tok'ra. Hey, we got the guy here. Also, I found it interesting that the Tok'ra have technology to extract a Goa'uld from a host, but the Tolan don't.
Well, the Tok'ra, that's their thing. Like, they are Goa'uld, so to speak.
Prepare for incoming Gold Channel communication.
You like weird stories? You like bizarre accounts? You like horror movies?
Come on down to Pumpkin Hill Radio for all your paranormal, metaphysical, and high strangeness needs. Every Tuesday with hosts Travis, that's me, and Dawson.
It's me. You ever seen something you can't explain? You ever felt something you can't explain?
Do you have questions that nobody can answer?
You heard a story that made you feel completely mad?
Do you feel like you shouldn't Google what you just saw?
Have you tried to Google it and got nothing?
We might be able to help.
We're looking for it.
That's every Tuesday with hosts Travis and Dawson, Pumpkin Hill Radio. Come on down.
PHR, baby.
Pumpkin Hill Radio, available on all platforms. Anything else to say?
We'll see you there. Give it a follow. Tell your friends.
The Tolan made a whole thing so that you could have the host and the symbiote talk.
Okay. Do you get the idea that they just made that for this situation? Like they just whipped it up real quick?
Maybe.
Or is this something that they've had the designs and plans on, and that's been chilling in a vault somewhere for a while?
That was the impression I got. Was like, yeah, we have this technology that does this thing, so we just did it.
I think I've always thought about it that way, is they've just always had it, until I watched this episode. And I remember thinking, like, during the course of this episode, going, do they mean they just created that, like, right now? I've never considered that before.
Okay, we need this thing. Poof, there it is. Yet they still don't have a way to extract the symbiote from a host.
It's a much more delicate process, I guess.
Apparently. I mean, it's just plot whatever. It's just interesting to me.
But also what you learn from that, though, is the Tolan, the Nox, and
the
Tok'ra are at least in communication with each other and have open doors of communication. Is anybody else included in that list?
It's interesting to me too. Let's go down because the Nox are one of the 4 races, the now soon to be 5 races, right?
I was just wondering if you knew who the 4 races were. So
yeah, because they named them out, right? So there's the Nox, there's the Asgard, there's the I forget. There's one they mentioned that had some weird name. We haven't seen them.
We haven't seen the other 2 yet.
Okay, they named all of them,
and I'm not going to tell you if we're ever going to see them or not either. So
there's one. I just remember one of them. I was like, oh, I don't remember that one.
There's the Furlings.
Furlings. That's the one I was thinking of.
And then who's the 4th one? Do you remember?
Oh, the Ancients.
Those were the builders of the Stargate. Yeah.
So those are the 4. I find it kind of interesting though that the Tolan. Well, maybe they're not quite, but they seem like they're all in touch, right? So they said humanity is going to be the 5th race. Where do the Tolan figure into that? Because they seem to be pretty advanced.
I just always figured that the Tolan are some offshoot of humanity that freed themselves from gold rule or got or whatever, and they just advanced way faster than we did here on Earth.
Okay.
I don't see the Tolan as physically different than humans. Whereas the Nox are physically different.
It's like there's the humans and you have like a Canadian human and an American human.
Yeah.
Here you have humans and you have an Earth human and a Tolan human.
That's my impression. I can't say, like obviously the Asgard are a completely different race.
Very much so.
You would assume the Furlings are a completely different race. You would assume the Ancients, whatever they are, is a completely different race.
We, Brent, need to update our tracking board.
We do. Do we have any trackings to update for today?
I didn't get any for crying out louds. No indeeds. We had a conversation about Sam and her boyfriends.
I will say there was one part where Jack went, "Oh, please," which was for crying out loud. Like it was the exact same intonation. It was the exact same thing, but he didn't say the words. You got to say the words.
And they chose not to do it. That was a conscious choice.
Got to say the words. I am shocked at how little we have updated this tracking board this season.
Yeah, season 3 has not had a lot at all. It's disappointing. As I said, we think about over tracking Wizard of Oz references. There's been a couple of those.
There's been several of those. Yeah. Simpsons references, they come in a bunch and yeah.
One of the big notes that I have on this, I'm going to hand over to you, is all of the many themes that were covered in this episode in great depth and detail. I spent a lot longer talking about my first time reactions to this than I planned. We have a lot to talk about in this next section. Brent, why don't you start talking about the sci-fi messages we pulled, and when we get through those, you're going to rate this episode on a scale of 0 to 7 chevrons as to how strong those messages were.
Jeff, there is an art to picking out these messages.
Yep.
We have sort of developed a litmus test that we use about the sci-fi messages. Is it a hope for a better future, a mirror to society, or does it tell us how to be better human beings to one another? That's not to say that those are the only types of sci-fi messages that get put out there. I think this one expands that on some other levels. Jeff, I have so many notes on this particular section, but what I'm realizing is this is still a Catherine Powers episode.
Mm-hmm.
And what Catherine Powers does is she presents issues. She puts issues out there. She doesn't tend to discuss them, and then they tend to not really go anywhere.
Right. It's just kind of,
But what she did in this episode was she put so many of them in there.
Right. Push.
And then didn't discuss them. Hey, you and animals, you use animals? Do you do this thing with animals? Well, we decide that we're bigger than animals than you are. And then we didn't hear anything else about it for the rest of the episode. It's a phenomenal idea. You're like, oh my God, what says that we're higher than animals? Where do we go with that? How do we treat our animals? Are we treating our animals with respect and with gratitude, but we are still using them as beasts of burden and as food and as are we treating them as lower class, lower than beings than what we ourselves are? There's such a thing I think that we're being talked about here with arrogance. What is your arrogance as top of the food chain? The Tolan arrogance almost was their undoing.
100%.
There's no way that they're going to get past our ion cannons. There's nothing they can do. It's impenetrable alloys. There's painting. They're never, before they could do that, they could, well, yeah, they could try to come all out at once. That's never going to happen. How's your arrogance? Hey, how's our arrogance as a country? You know, do we really care? Are we really going to take anybody out, whoever comes and tests us? What does our arrogance do? We hit a really good example when I talk about hope for the future. You talk about the Tolan being Star Trek and Stargate. Can we as a society get to a spot? We just got a really good, clear example of a society that has gotten past the need for war, but they're still able to defend themselves if they need to. They seem to have gotten in let's just assume that that's what it is, because it certainly presents itself as, this is a planet that does not have poverty. This is a planet that does not go without. This is a planet that has plenty of resources for all of its population. This is a planet where everybody seems super chill. I mean, Nareem is about as chill as you gonna get. You know?
I know when he comes in, when the Goa'uld are starting to attack, he just walks in. You should probably look at this thing on your view screen. Just check that out.
That's like his level of, you know, excitement goes up to 4.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to even having such respect and such regard for life, that killing even in your own defense is sickening to you. Oh wait, I'm sorry. To have such respect for life that you could look at a creature such as the Goa'uld and go, maybe it has a point. Let's hear it out. And actually hold that and not just summarily dismiss it for what it is. They showed us that. Did they discuss it? Did they go anywhere with it? Did they lead us to any one conclusion or the other? Not really. There's also this other one. The Goa'uld convinced themselves, and I want to dive into this one just for a second. The Goa'uld convinced themselves. They make them feel better about what they do by lying to themselves. Nothing of the host remains. Nothing of the host remains. Well, what is that? That's just a remnant. That's not the host. Even when it's staring you in the face, even when it's having a conversation, yeah, that's not really the host. Nothing of the host remains. What about your host? Nothing. When he's looked at Zapagna and said, is your host in there somewhere? He goes, no, nothing of the host remains. This particular idea reminds me of what I think is probably, Jeff, the single most important podcast episode I have ever recorded in my life. Was for the show Beam Me Up, a Star Trek podcast I did. It was on the episode Far Beyond the Stars, and it's the only episode where Matt was with me when we had a guest on.
It's such a great episode. It's such a powerful episode, many times actually.
And just to be clear, while the episode of Star Trek Far Beyond the Stars is a great episode and a powerful episode, you're talking about the podcast episode.
I am talking about you, the Beam Me Up, a Star Trek podcast, the episode for that one.
And the reason for that is I had a friend of mine on, Jessica, who is a Black female, who discussed in really clear depth, and Matt and I were able just to sit back and go, here, you go. I don't have to put words in your mouth. And she did such a great, eloquent job in a respectful way of addressing things. And one of Jessica's stories, and I encourage everybody to go listen to that episode, not because I need more download numbers. I literally think everybody should hear this one episode, if nothing else.
Agreed.
But she talks about, and I was there for this. I personally witnessed this one. Okay. When she was giving birth to her son, her second born, her son, she almost died. And the reason she almost died is because the doctors did not believe her when she talked about a pain that she was having that was abnormal. And she began to illustrate how it literally took her husband going in and getting somebody else and bringing somebody in who finally listened. And how the idea, and this is very sickening to me, and it has been confirmed, but there are physician texts that teach that Black people have a much higher pain tolerance and feel pain in a different way, or much lower, whichever direction it goes, but they feel pain in a different way than what white people do. And so you can do things to them and it doesn't really matter. Okay, let's rewind. The issue of slavery, and I want to be clear, I'm not just talking about American slavery. I'm going to talk about slavery throughout all of history, across the entire world, and that includes slavery that's going on today. The only way that you can enslave another human being is if you determine that that person is lower than you are. By what evidence? No evidence. You just lie to yourself and you tell your person that you tell yourself that person is lower than I am. It is the only way. I believe it's something smaller brains. They're not as developed. They're not, they can handle the stress of slavery and working in the fields, that type of slavery, because they're basically beasts of burden. They're animals. They can handle it. It's not that big of a deal to them. They don't feel heat the same way. They don't burn the same way. So they can go do that. We're higher on the food chain. It's our destiny, just disgusting, gross.
Every argument you're making, though, is exactly what Zapachna was saying about humans. Like this isn't like just, I'm going to like loosely relate these things. Beat for beat, Zapachna is like, you're not as smart. You're not as this. You're not as that. So you don't experience things the same, and there's nothing left of you. This is a beat for beat, dead on comparison. That's disgusting.
And then you get this idea that gets thrown in there. Is life of a slave really life at all that they address? Because they actually did go to that one.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things, Jeff, I talk about this. This is an episode where it has all of these great Star Trek ideas, right? The great sci-fi messages that it's just doing. But it's like, instead of like picking one and just a cannon shot to the heart, it's just, I'm picking up all these little pebbles. I'm just going to throw them at you. And they're all going to hit.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is going to hit, but we're not going to do much with them. This episode, though, Jeff, at the end of the day, it all leads to one question. What makes an individual an individual? What makes a human a human? What gives a person humanity? This episode, Jeff, in my opinion, is Stargate's measure of a man.
Yeah.
Except what we don't get is somebody sitting there saying, we were created to seek out new life. Well, there it sits. We don't get this is the right answer. I kind of like it that way.
Yeah.
So how do I rank this? I'm sorry. How do I rate this? A scale of 0 to 7 chevrons, Jeff. I'm not even going to, we have to talk about intentionality because we always do. Okay. It's there.
Yeah. That's the point of the episode.
This is a Catherine Powers episode. This is how she writes her episodes, right? So, okay, can I give it 7? I can't, because none of these questions did it really discuss and really look at, but there were so many, and they're all great. And how long have I been talking about this, Jeff? Now for 15 minutes, almost 10 minutes. Oh my gosh. And if you and I were to actually have a discussion on any one of these, we'll go for another hour. So I don't know that I can give it 7 because it didn't really discuss it, but it threw so many out there. I don't know how I go much lower than 5. So do I meet it in the middle and say 6? I think that's what I got to do. I got to go 6 chevrons on this one, Jeff. Even though it didn't really discuss them, it threw them out there. It did have some things they did have some discussion on. Don't get me wrong, but it didn't like really turn over. We hit it. We talked about it. We moved on. But they were all questions about one central idea. What is humanity? What made Skara worthy of and on an equal level with Chlorel?
To further that, what this essentially said was the body is completely ancillary to the being. There's the being of Skara, the being of Chlorel, and one of them gets this body that happens to be here.
I'm going to give this 6 chevrons, Jeff.
I think that makes a lot of sense because one, it's just sheer volume, right? Sheer volume of everything that came through. But
well, on the back of that, I just rated the episode, but Jeff, you get to rank the episode. You get to take this episode and you get to place it in our 100% completely accurate and definitive ranking of season 3 of Stargate SG-1. Jeff, our current top 5, let's go through that, is Jolinar's Memories and The Devil You Know. We've combined them into one episode because that's what they were. Number 2 is Forever and a Day. Number 3 is Fair Game. Number 4 is Foothold from last week. Number 5 is Learning Curve. Jeff, I ask you, does this crack the top 5? And if so, where? And if not, still, where?
It absolutely does. And this is one, a lot of times when we have episodes that have big messages to them and really puts it out there, a thing we've said quite a bit is incredible episode, incredible message, and I never want to watch it again. I think of Cold Lazarus, right? Where it's like, wow, that hit me, boom, and I'm not going to watch it again. This is a episode with so many messages, and some of them it dives into, and I'm dying to watch this one again. Not as much as Foothold. Like, I don't have that. I'm not going to run out of here and watch that one again, but I'm going to watch this episode again. This will not be a skip for me. I am going to make this, Brent, our new number 4 episode, dropping Foothold to number 5.
Wow. I think it's low, but that's okay.
You think it should be higher?
I do. I
Really?
like this episode a lot. A lot.
It's a really good episode. But I mean, look at these, the top 3 that it's not going to be number 1.
I will say Joel and Er's Memories and Devil, was definitely a spectacle.
Yes.
But I got to be honest, it's not an episode I love to go back to.
Really?
It's not an episode I ever go, let's go watch these episodes. I honestly, neither is Forever and a Day, but Forever and a Day is so poignant.
Mm-hmm.
Fair Game. Fair Game's a great one. Frankly, I'm going to this grouping of episodes right here, this Pretense, Foothold, a couple of the other ones coming up. I'm not going to tell you which ones. Like, this back half of season 3 to me is pretty stellar, and we're just getting started on.
Okay.
That being said, Jeff, it's time to move on with the back half of season 3, because this is going to put a bow on Pretense. Jeff, would you like to know what we're watching next time here on Stargate SG-1 for the first time?
Absolutely.
I love the title for this episode. Ergo.
Ergo?
Good luck. Ergo. U-R-G-O. One word. Ergo.
U-R-G-O?
U-R-G-O.
I am. I was going to do I was like, oh, Ergo, their chairs are hurting their backs and they need wrist rests for their mouses, but with a U? Ergo is going to be some dude's name. They're going to end up on a ship. Like, I'm thinking like a boat on the water, some transit thing, and there's going to be some dude named Ergo who's going to, they get lost and they end up on a boat, and Ergo, Captain Ergo or whatever, is going to help them sail the seas.
And they're going to fight a whale while they're at it and all that sort of stuff.
Chase it down. That's going to be the whole episode. They're going to be looking, he's like, I'm going to get that whale. You can call me Ishmael, but I go by Ergo.
There you go. So it's a water episode. That's what we're going with. Okay.
Yeah, water.
All right. Well, there you go. You're not a good guesser, Jeff.
Yeah. What do you say with It's not even a real word.
I told you. Good luck.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will see exactly what happens here next time on Stargate SG-1 for the first time. You guys, make sure you definitely want to come back next week and find out if Jeff is right. Is it a water episode or not? Thank you guys so much for joining us here this week. Hey, listen, wherever you're getting the show, please don't forget to subscribe. Could be a podcatcher, could be an audio listener, could be out there on YouTube, could be out there on Audible, Podchaser, any of those sorts of places. Please subscribe to this show. Please leave us a rating and review. And the biggest thing you could do for us is share this show with someone whom you know who loves Stargate SG-1 or who needs to get into the gate for the first time. So for my buddy Jeff over there, it's my name's Brent, and
hey,
we're going to
Brent.
sign off. What's up, Jeff?
How many Goa'uld does it take to attack an advanced world?
I don't know, Jeff. How many Goa'uld does it take to attack an advanced world?
A gaggle of Goa'ulds.
Crying out loud.